Example number 2, we're solving a rational equation with extraneous solutions. That basically means extra answers, so we need to plug them back in. Because what we could do really quick is just set all our denominators equal to 0 and solve for x. See what our domain would be, right? So if I take m minus 4, set it equal to 0, m cannot equal 4, right? So that means if I get an answer of 4, I know it's not going to work out, okay, because I can't divide by 0 here. Then if I take this one, set it equal to 0, it's a quadratic, right? So I could use quadratic formula, or I could try to factor it. I might as well factor it because when I do my LCD, I'm going to factor that anyways. So because this is linear, so that's part of my LCD, right? There's a factor, and then this is linear, so that would be another factor. I could probably factor out a 3 out of that one, right? So then I would get 3 times m minus 2, right? So those are factors of that one. And then to factor this one, I'm going to do quadratic. So might as well just do quadratic right here. Hey, look, I can factor out a 3 out of all those, right? So m squared minus 6m plus 8 equals 0, right? So divide both sides by 3. So that 3 really doesn't matter. All right, now what times what is 8 but adds to 6? Well, that would be a negative 4 and a negative 2, right? So set those equal to 0. We get m equals 4, which we already know. So we can't have that, right? And this one, we get m equals 2. So we know we can't have 4 and 2 now. And then this last one, set that equal to 0. Again, I'm just finding my domain here. Lets me know what extra answers I can throw out if I get. So add 6 to both sides, divide by 3, we get m equals 2 again, right? So we can know we can't have these two numbers, right? So if we get those two numbers there, we can call them extraneous and they're not going to work. Any other answer we can plug back in and check it to see if it's true. But you just want to make sure that you do your domain so then you know what you can't have. Okay. All right. So then we know this one. Those factors are a 3 and an m minus 4 and an m minus 2. Well, look, we already have an m minus 2. And this was an m minus 4, correct? Kind of looks like an m plus 4, but it's actually minus 4, right? So we actually have all those two, and we have this 3 as well, right? So there's our LCM right there. So we don't need to list this 3 twice. We don't need to list this m minus 4 or this m minus 2. Okay, so now we're going to multiply everything by that. So we're going to take this, and we're going to multiply by this one. So what happens is the m minus 4 on bottom is going to cancel, and then we just get 3 times m minus 2 times our top, 2m. Okay, then on this fraction, we're going to take this and multiply it by this fraction, and this time everything's going to cancel out on bottom with everything right here, so we just get left with minus m squared plus 7m plus 4. Now, my question is, I'm wondering if, yeah, I need to distribute that negative. So I'll put parentheses around that. And then lastly, I'm kind of running out of room here. I'm going to take this thing, LCD again, and multiply by this one. Now this time, this one right here gets canceled out with this one, right? So then we get left with an equals, I'm going to have to erase some of this. Okay. This time we get left with a m minus 4 times 4m. Okay, and now we can just simplify, right? We can distribute this 3, distribute the 2m, so I'll multiply this first. So 3 times 2 is 6m, 6m, then times this m would be a 6m squared, and then 6m times this negative 2 is a 6m times negative 2 is negative 12m. Perfect. Distribute the negative. Okay, then here distribute this 4m to both of these. We get 4m squared minus 16m. Now, since I have a squared, I want to combine all my squareds, get them all on one side, right? So this would be 6m minus 1m is a 5m squared minus 5m minus 12m minus 7m, that's minus 19m, and then we just have that negative 4. So I need to move over this 4m squared, and I need to move over this 16m because I have a quadratic, right? A squared. So if I add 16m, add 16m to both sides, and then subtract 4m squared, subtract 4m squared. And remember, when you factor, which we'll go ahead and do, you always divide by your a, but here I had an m squared, so it's just my a is 1, that's why I didn't divide my factors by anything. But here, again, I have an m squared, so here, when I factor, minus 4 equals 0. When I factor, I get an m minus 4 and an m plus 1. I don't have to divide these by my a because my a is 1. So I don't need to worry about it. But if you do have an a other than 1, you want to divide by that. All right, so then I set each of these equal to 0, and I get m is equal to 4. But I know from before that I can't have that, right? Because that was in my restrictions on my domain, and cannot be 4, right? So I know this is called an extraneous solution. So that one's not going to work. And then m minus 1, that's not in my list of what I can't have in my domain. So that one most likely is probably going to work. And we could plug it in and check that and make sure, and it actually does turn out to be true. So there is our answer.